5 hours, 43 minutes, and 18 seconds. Local time. USS Frank Peterson was already inside the new Omani-side Hormuz safe route when an influence mine detonated 14 feet off her port quarter at waypoint Sierra 4, lifting the stern by 19 inches, knocking out one shaft sensor, and dropping her speed from 16 knots to 7 inches, less than 4 seconds. 32 seconds behind her, USS Michael Murphy was still following the same transit line, exactly 1,180 yards astern, and her Combat Information Center believed it was watching the aftermath of a single isolated blast. It was not. The first detonation was not the main attack. It was the trigger for the geometry that followed. Frank Peterson's SPS-73 still showed a clear lane. Michael Murphy's navigation plot still showed the new route as the safest water in the strait. Both ships thought the problem was one mine and one damaged destroyer. They were wrong. The real danger was a second mine row buried directly under the rescue path Michael Murphy was about to take, and the next firing window would open in exactly 41 seconds. To understand what is happening, you need to understand why the new safe route existed in the first place and why that mattered more than the mine itself. On 16 April, the Omani side of the strait was being treated as the lower risk corridor because Tehran had floated the idea that traffic on that side could move without interference. That sounded like de-escalation. In practice, it created a narrower pattern of movement, tighter spacing, and a predictable ribbon of water where every neutral captain, every escort, and every anxious warship would naturally want to sail. Iran did not need to mine the whole strait. It only needed to shape movement into one disciplined channel and let doctrine do the rest. What the system believed was happening was not what was actually happening. What looked like a safer route was only the visible layer. The real objective was not to sink the lead ship outright. The real objective was to stop the first ship, force the second ship into standard rescue geometry, and place both hulls inside a fixed engagement box where mines, shore observers, and follow-on fires could work together. Iran did not design the mine to defeat the defense. Iran designed it to make the defense irrelevant. The overlooked person who saw that risk first was not the captain, not the sonar chief, and not the strike officer. It was Lieutenant Mara Keane, a tactical analyst on Michael Murphy, who had spent the previous night building a pattern table from merchant transits, old hydrographic charts, and passive acoustic logs. At 2:11, Keane filed a 3-page note to the watch officer after noticing that civilian ships using the new route were not centered in the corridor. They were drifting off the center line by between 90 and 140 yards at 2 exact waypoints, then correcting back again. That mattered because civilian masters do not all make the same steering error in the same place. Keane added one more detail. Michael Murphy's SQS-53C had logged 4 short bottom returns at 0:48, 2 clean to be natural rock and 2 stationary to be fishing gear. Her conclusion was plain. If the route was being advertised as safe, then the center line itself was the most suspicious water in the strait. The note was acknowledged, logged, and pushed down the stack because the task force needed the lane open. At 5 hours, 43 minutes, and 22 seconds, that ignored note became the difference between 2 damaged warships and 2 lost ones. Frank Peterson's aft engineering station reported starboard shaft vibration, minor flooding in 1 auxiliary compartment, and no fire. The first mine had not broken the ship. It had frozen her in place. Michael Murphy immediately started the expected response. Speed down, rudder 2 degrees left, close the distance, prepare damage support. That was exactly what Iran needed her to do. At 5 hours, 43 minutes, and 31 seconds, Keane looked at the track history and saw the problem at once. Frank Peterson had drifted 76 yards north of the safe route center line after the blast. Michael Murphy, by moving in for support, was about to cross the undisturbed center ribbon the lead ship had never actually touched. The mine that hit Frank Peterson had not been placed under the center line. It had been offset. That meant at least one more mine was probably sitting where the rescue track would naturally go. She told the tactical action officer, "Do not close on the plotted lane. "The lane is the mine line." He asked for confirmation. She answered with numbers. "Detonation offset 76 yards north. Merchant drift points match Sierra 5 and Sierra 6. Centerline is wrong. 40 seconds to crossing." At 5 hours, 43 minutes and 39 seconds, Michael Murphy's helm still had the ship on the rescue vector. At 5 hours, 43 minutes and 44 seconds, the commanding officer, Commander Luke Harlan, asked what Keane was actually saying. She said it clearly. Frank Peterson was the stop charge. We are the kill charge. That changed the fight. At 5 hours, 43 minutes and 48 seconds, Harlan ordered all engines back 1/3, rudder right 12 degrees, and a 420 yard south offset from the published safe route. That was not a normal move in constricted water with a damaged consort ahead. It was the only move that made sense if the route itself was the trap. At 5 hours, 43 minutes and 55 seconds, the mine firing window Keane predicted opened. Nothing detonated under Michael Murphy because she was no longer where the mine expected her to be. But that did not end the attack. It exposed its next layer. At 5 hours, 44 minutes and 3 seconds, Frank Peterson's bridge reported a small wooden dhow on bearing 018 at 3.4 nautical miles. Nearly stationary, no AIS, bow pointed toward the damaged destroyer. The dhow had been background clutter until the geometry broke. Now it mattered. Minefields in a choke point are dangerous by themselves, but a shaped ambush is more dangerous when someone is confirming the result in real time. Keane had already considered that in her 211 note. She had written that fixed mines alone would be too crude for a politically controlled safe route. Someone had to be watching the lane, and somebody ashore had to know when the lead ship stopped. At 5 hours, 44 minutes and 10 seconds, Michael Murphy's SLQ-32 detected a 1.2 second burst in the commercial marine band, weak but directional, from the dhows bearing toward the Iranian side of the strait. What the system believed was happening was not what was actually happening. This was not a random mine strike. It was a measured corridor attack with a spotter. At 5 hours, 44 minutes and 16 seconds, Harlan stopped thinking like an escort commander and started thinking like a man inside a firing solution. He ordered no approach to Frank Peterson along the plotted route, launched the embarked MH-60R Seahawk from Michael Murphy at 5 hours, 44 minutes and 41 seconds, and told Frank Peterson to hold position, maintain minimum shaft turns, and send no boat into the water. That last order looked cold. It saved lives. A rigid hull inflatable sent down the visible lane would have crossed the exact center ribbon Keane was trying to avoid. At 5 hours, 45 minutes and 2 seconds, the Seahawk climbed to 300 feet south of the channel and began a rapid visual sweep, while Michael Murphy's sonar team reran the bottom returns using the new offset geometry. The picture changed instantly. At 5 hours, 45 minutes and 19 seconds, sonar resolved 3 stationary contacts in a line between Sierra 5 and Sierra 6, spaced 118 yards apart, all directly beneath the official route center. At 5 hours, 45 minutes and 27 seconds, a 4th contact appeared 64 yards north of Frank Peterson's current stern position. The first problem was visible. The second problem was the one that mattered. The blast under Frank Peterson was only the stop signal. The real danger was the untouched row waiting for any standard rescue track, tug approach, or panic turn. At 5 hours, 45 minutes and 31 seconds, the Seahawk's crew identified the dhow's stern rigging and one unusual detail. No fishing nets, no cargo, but one stabilized mast camera and a flat panel antenna under canvas. At 5 hours, 45 minutes and 40 seconds, Harlan had the proof he needed. He reported a controlled mine ambush, requested immediate route closure, and authorized the helicopter to force the dhow to break contact. At 5 hours, 45 minutes and 58 seconds, the MH-60R made a low pass. The dhow turned hard east and transmitted again. That confirmed it. At 5 hours, 46 minutes and 7 seconds, Michael Murphy's 5-inch gun fired one warning round, 220 yards ahead of the dhow's bow. The vessel did not stop. At 5 hours, 46 minutes and 19 seconds, a second round struck 18 yards off its port side. The antenna collapsed. The transmission ended. The spotter had just been removed from the chain, but the minefield was still there. Frank Peterson was still damaged, and the strait was still narrow. The reversal came from Keene's original logic. Do not treat the route as truth. Treat the route as the weapon. At 5 hours, 46 minutes and 31 seconds, she recommended a manual south side extraction corridor, based not on the published lane, but on the merchant drift pattern she had logged before dawn. Harlan approved it. Michael Murphy held south. The Seahawk marked the suspected mine line, and Frank Peterson used differential thrust and 3-knot sternway to slide 82 yards off the arm center ribbon. No second mine fired. By 5 hours, 52 minutes and 14 seconds, both destroyers were clear of the kill line and outside the original trap geometry. At 6 hours, 8 minutes, explosive ordnance teams and follow-on support began isolating the mine row. By 6 hours, 41 minutes and 27 seconds, the route was closed to all traffic. Frank Peterson survived with 1 damaged shaft train, localized flooding, and 7 wounded sailors, all alive. Michael Murphy survived untouched because she refused the obvious path. Iran's real plan was not just to hit a warship, it was to turn the new safe route into a guided behavior corridor, stop the first destroyer, pull the second into the center line, and make rescue doctrine carry both ships into the same mine box. It almost worked because the route looked diplomatic, legal, and safe. It failed because one analyst had already noticed that real captains were quietly avoiding the center of the lane hours before the first detonation. The 2 warships kept sailing. The formation never broke. And the most dangerous thing Iran failed to calculate was not the sonar, not the gun, and not the armor. It was Lieutenant Mara Keene, the one person who understood that the safe route was the mine.